Greetings everyone. This presentation and YouTube video is specifically designed for couples who have been through the fiance visa process or who are going through the process now, or couples who are thinking about it, or maybe couples who are just sympathetic to our cause. So the name of this presentation is The Insane Fiance Visa Process by an Insane, Arrogant, Incompetent, and Corrupt U.S. Federal Government. So who are we? We are advocates for change. You should pause these videos and read the pages because I'm only going to briefly touch on each page. We are advocates for a safer America because we have a big exposure to the national security now that we're concerned about. And we're advocates for loving couples who are victims of fiancé visa denials. More specifically, who are we? We are federal government consultants, past and present employees of the Department of Homeland Security and Department of State, PhDs in academia and in the private sector, members of federal watchdog organizations, American citizens and their foreign fiancés, and married couples, people like you, and members of Congress and members of the press, to name a few. So I want to ask you here to watch videos 1 through 5. These were uploaded the last week of January 2018 and the first week of February 2018. These 1 through 5 videos have more detail than what I'm going to give you here, but this could possibly do the trick for you. So please pause and read these screens. It's vital that you as a couple, especially if you're going to go through this process now, to learn the process. And this is something that you're not going to find up on a visa forum. You're not going to find it anywhere else on YouTube. So you need to learn what we're talking to you about because it's vital for you to be prepared for this when you go into the interview. And also please subscribe. We're going to be adding content here at least weekly. Join the fight. Subscribe below. Whether you are an international couple or a fiancé in the fiancé visa process, or think that you might be, in an international relationship someday, maybe you're a foreign student here in the United States and you think there's a possibility that you have to go through this, or somebody just has compassion for us, please subscribe. So this is a new topic, U.S. Senate Committee on Immigration. And the meeting is fiancé visa fraud, and it's a C-SPAN video. We'll show you on the next page how to find this. This is something that we recommend that everybody watches, and it's pretty painful to watch because it's almost 2 hours long. But this is going to do nothing but help you. This shows you these are the people, the lower right here. This is the panel number 2 in this meeting. And these are the people that decide all the policies and procedures, and they talk to it. They talk to the Senate Committee on Immigration about what they have set up and what they changed. So it's important for you to know this stuff. So the way you find this video is you just Google C-SPAN, the Senate Committee on Immigration, and the name of the meeting is Fiancé Visa Fraud. This is a U.S. Senate Committee meeting. So this is panel number 2. We're not going to talk about panel number 1. You have to watch the other videos to see that. So these people are Donna Neufeld, David Donahue, David Renaud, Matthew Emmerich, and Greg Navarro. Navarro, the guy on the right, is an ICE guy, not a nice guy. He's an ICE guy, Immigrations and Customs Enforcement. So he's somebody that we don't look at as a bad guy. We think their group is doing the best job of anybody here. His people are the people that wear handcuffs and carry guns, and they go around cleaning up after these other people screw up. So this is Neufeld. The reason I showed you this screen, all of these people, I give you intros in the longer videos, so you'd have to watch them. But Neufeld is just giving you a spiel here about he's the head of the service center. So when you file an I-129F packet and you look on the I-129F form and it tells you where to send the packet, it's one of several service centers that this guy is ahead of. So you might send a packet to Dallas, or you might send it to LA or something. So this guy's service centers are staffed by 3,681 employees, and 1,800 contractors, and that's what he says at the 42-minute mark. You can see below his screen print, on the bottom of the screen print. So this is kind of, this is a pretty high number of contractors to employees ratio. Usually, I mean, he's got just about one contractor for every 2 employees. So, this is what I say on the left. The contractors, maybe ICE contractors, they might be law enforcement. They might be U.S. military coming back, and they're hired as a contractor to train ICE people in certain situations or something like that. But these service centers, the only contractors that they would have are federal government consultants. So we are federal government consultants, and I am a very experienced federal government consultant, and I'm kind of shocked by all this stuff because this is like the biggest display of craziness I've ever seen. This is on par with North Korea. It's kind of a crazy place. So is this. So this is Ranking Member Senator Feinstein, Dianne Feinstein from California. She's been in Congress since George Washington era. She's grilling this panel on the San Bernardino attack. Why? Because that's San Bernardino's in California. It happened in her state. So she asks, what's happened? What have you guys done since the terrorist attack? This is the second meeting after that. The first meeting was called to set up a plan. And Emmerich replies here that the San Bernardino reviews have been done. Everything's finalized now. They put additional measures in the screening process. They modified some forms. That would be the I-129F because there's no other forms. Interviewers were trained on the changes. So, how do you feel? Do you feel safe about this? A terrorist came in and shot a bunch of Americans and killed them. And, these are the changes that they have implemented. So I have a little bit of smoke by his screen print because that's just to signify kind of a smoke and mirror show. So this is what the Senate is actually looking at, a smoke and mirror show. They think they're watching a meeting. We're better off at, we're better suited to identify this kind of stuff. This is just pure craziness. It's a smoke and mirror show that these guys are giving for an answer. The Senate Committee on Immigration, the legislative branch summoned these guys in from the executive branch to say, hey, tell us what you've done. What have you done to eliminate this in the future? And, what they give them is just a big show that's just a show of craziness. So the second thing that Feinstein asked about, Feinstein came in, late and left early. But she got a few good points across before she left, and most of them had to do with her state. So this is 274 cases identified by an ICE investigation where human traffickers got into the United States. Human trafficking criminals got human trafficking victims into the United States on work visas and on fiancé visas. And she asks Emmerich about this, and he replies that the interviewers are trained to look for human trafficking indicators. This is, there should be so much smoke in here you can't see the guy because this is just pure craziness. They're trained to look for human trafficking indicators. And this meeting was in, I think, February of 2017. So he's not doing a very good job because we still have human traffickers slipping through the system with ease. So this is a second act of smoke and mirrors that we've seen. Second question, second smoke and mirror show. This is Grace Huang, who was from panel number 1. Panel number 1 is covered in more detail in the video number 1 of the 5 videos that we uploaded, just a couple weeks ago. So Grace Huang is an advocate for human trafficking victims, and this is a little shot for human trafficking that I pulled off the web. So human trafficking, if you're not sure what it is, it's a global problem. And on the bottom it says prostitution, servitude, and forced labor. So these are victims of human trafficking. A lot of them are female, and they're brought into the country and they're scammed by American citizen petitioners who are actually low-level criminals. So they wind up in a situation that they don't want to be in. some of them, I guess you can't argue. Some of them are, in sweatshops because they want to be, because it's still better than the country they came from. Some of them are in prostitution because they've been in prostitution all their life. But, just in general, human trafficking is just a bad thing. So this is ICE. ICE, again, is Donahue's gang, and this is, Immigrations and Customs Enforcement, the people that carry the guns and the handcuffs. So they went out and found 1,437 people in fiscal year 2015, and they also identified 400 victims of human trafficking. So these are 400 people that got into the United States, then slipped through the system. And, how did they slip through the system? Well, any 12-year-old could slip through the system. That's how they got through. They're smarter than a 12-year-old. So here's more smoke and mirrors. This is our buddy Navarro. He replies that marriage fraud is taken seriously. He also said that, fiancé visa applications are given the most scrutiny of any kind of visa. Why? Because fiancé visas are the easiest, fastest way to gain United States citizenship. If you look at all the other kinds of visas that we offer for people to immigrate to the United States, this is the easiest way to get here. It's a fiancé visa. It's almost automatic, almost. So, he says that they give these applications the most scrutiny, but, it doesn't do any good. That's why there's some smoke up there, because it just doesn't do any good to give it more scrutiny. If it isn't working, it's not working. So that's the end of that topic on the C-SPAN video. So please, Google this and watch it. It's painful. Watch it instead of a movie some night. Get some popcorn and watch the whole meeting, and you'll learn the entire process, the way the government thinks that they're doing the job and the way they think they're following the law. New topic, the whole of government approach and the indicator system. So these are 4 possible outcomes of a fiancé visa case. So there's, couples who are legitimate and couples who are not legitimate. 2 different kinds of couples. Number 1, couples who are legitimate and they get approved. That's a good thing, right? Couples that are in loving relationships should get approved. Number 2 outcome is criminal and fraudulent couples are denied. That's also a good thing, but the problem is it doesn't happen very often. You'll see later, most of these groups, if they don't know what they're doing, they ask a 12-year-old. A 12-year-old says, here's how you beat the system. You just don't get any indicators. Number 3, couples who are criminal fraudulent and presenting themselves as bona fide, and they're approved. That's bad. Well, that's bad, but, that happens all the time too. So, there's just certain target groups that are criminal that slide through the system with ease, and you'll see that in a few slides. And number 4, couples who are in legitimate loving relationships who get denied. That's bad, but it happens. And, it's important for you to know this entire, just watch this entire video, because it's, if you're going through this process now, it's really, really important that you understand all this stuff. And it's not up on a forum anywhere. It's not on YouTube anywhere. So this is the INA, the Immigration and Nationality Act, Section 104A. And in here, you see in red, consular officers have the final say in granting or refusal of visas. In other words, most people say the approval or denial of visas these days. But this is the law. The consular officer has the final say. But the consular officer is also guided by a bunch of policies and procedures that are set up by the Secretary of State. Now, the Secretary of State doesn't do this anymore. The Secretary of State delegated this to the Deputy Secretary of State, and that's one of the guys you see in the meeting here, Donahue. So, in other words, the Secretary of State is charged with all the administration and enforcement of the provisions of this Act and all other immigration and nationality laws relating to the powers and duties and functions of diplomatic and consular officers in the United States. So all of the policies and procedures that the consular officer follows and immigration officers in USCIS, those are all dictated by these policies and procedures that are set up by the Deputy Secretary of State. So a bit here about immigration officers and consular officers. They're both the same. They're both, immigration officers is usually what you call these people in the USCIS. And Consular officers are the people in the consulates. So they're both hired in at a GS5 or GS7 level, and they can earn promotions up to a maximum level of GS9. This comes right off of the U.S. government sites. There's no education requirement, though. Hopefully, most of them are, degreed somehow. Federal job grade levels. So if you look on the lower left here in the middle, GS3 and 4, typically interns, or, these are your part-time college students that come in to work for your senator office in the summer. They're part-time, they're not even full-time, they're GS3 and GS4. GS5 to 7 are entry-level positions. These are federal job grades. You can just Google this and look it up and you'll find the same thing. That's how I found it. Now GS9 is their maximum level, which is in the next line. It would be GS8 to GS12 or mid-level positions. So basically a GS9 would be like a senior clerical person. So we're going to talk here about a statistical analysis. So the government calls this, they call their criteria the whole of government approach, including a whole of government indicator system, which is based off the I-129F mostly. They call it indicator system. We call it statistics. Because why? Because it's statistics. They can call it whatever they want. We call it statistics. It comes under the laws of statistics and the science of statistics. There's no science of indicators. So you as a couple, whether you're starting the process or thinking about it or whatever, you should look up red flags. And you can use I-129F, you can use Fiancé visa red flags, whatever. Google these things. Go into these pages, go through like the first 3 pages of hits and drill into all of the links and write down their red flags. And, one site will give you 8 or 10, next site will give you 20. When you're done, you should have a comprehensive list of everything that could be an indicator or a red flag. And, you as a couple need to analyze this and figure out what kind of red flags do we have and how do we get prepared for this, because red flags are a bad thing. So you have to know how to address your red flags. You have to know what they are and how to address them. And we're going to help you do that. So this is the I-129F form. This is a little older one. I think I grabbed this by mistake, probably. This is expired 6/30/2016, and I have plenty of 2017 ones that I grabbed too. So anyways, this is a 6-page form, or it was, maybe it's 7 now. And this has, just look at this form as a sheet of paper with a bunch of indicators that you're supposed to write in. So, for example, your name is probably not an indicator. Your name probably doesn't, ring any bells as being a possible fraudulent couple that should be denied. Your address might be, because maybe you live in a high crime area, or maybe you live in an area that's just full of Chinese restaurants. And, that's a high indication that you might be searching for a fiancé to come in here and work in a sweatshop called a Chinese restaurant. Country of birth might be an indicator. Maybe you were born in Syria and you're looking for a bride in Pakistan. That might be an indicator. Date of birth is not an indicator, but they have your date of birth of the US Citizen Petitioner on this page. They have the date of birth of your fiancé on another page. So from both of these, they can derive the difference in age. Difference in age is an indicator. So you go through our other videos and we explain in detail all these fields and how we think they could be indicators. This is the actual I-129F of the San Bernardino terrorists. So this is an American citizen petitioner. He decides, he's going to get all radicalized and go jihad on us. And he doesn't want to, go to Syria and fight Americans with guns. He wants to kill women and children and, people that are not armed, because, that's what jihadi people do. So he decides he can get a fiancé. She can hold another automatic weapon. They can kill twice as many Americans because there's 2 of them. So he goes up to www.findajihadwife.com or www.findajihadifiance.com, and he looks around. He doesn't look for somebody that we would maybe look for like on a dating site. Maybe you're maybe you're 30 years old and you're a man and you're looking for a lady who's maybe 24 to 28 years old or something like that, you put down an age range. You know, you don't worry that they're the same age as you. You don't have to find somebody the same age. A lot of people prefer somebody to not be the same age. So he goes up there and he knows age is an indicator. So he looks through a bunch of jihadi, people that want to kill Americans. And he finds this woman that's, her birth date is 7/13/86. He's 6/14/1987. They're born 336 days apart. He's a terrorist. He's about to commit a criminal act. He doesn't want to get caught before the criminal act. He wants to do it, and then, he doesn't care. But he doesn't want to get caught ahead of time. So his, whole purpose here is to avoid indicators. He's not going, to find a jihadi wife and England or someplace. He's going to find one in Pakistan. So, he finds, he avoids the first indicator. He avoids other indicators. They speak the same language. They have the same religion. They have the same ideals of killing Americans, but he probably didn't put that on the form. So here's his I-129F on the left. Some LA newspaper got a hold of it, and I got it from them. And I put their case number in the USCIS site. If you have a case pending, you know all about this. You probably check it every day. So I put the case number in and just to see how fast they got through the system. They got through the system pretty fast. There were no indicators to speak of, none at all. They slid through the system. Since there were no indicators, they slid through the interview. You'll see that later. So that's the end of that topic. It's an abbreviated chat about indicators. Now we go to the interview. The interview is whatever the government wants to call it. We call it the psychology because that's what it is. It's psychology. That's what it should be. So here we have, I did this initial audit, and then we've had, some of our other videos show a lot of different examples. But these are basically, these are a sample of actual fiancés that went through the process. When you go into an interview, and if you haven't been to an interview yet, just picture this. Your fiancé is going to go to an interview. They're going to ask her like 5 or 6 questions, or 4 or 3. Is she going to remember what they asked? Of course she's going to remember, or he. They're going to remember, and they're going to, So fiancé visa forum sites, ask people, share with people, so the others know what to expect. What questions were you asked in the interview? Also, legitimate couples, they might post this stuff on social media. A lot of these quotes are from social media. But wherever these quotes are from, I found them. I didn't manipulate them. I copied them and pasted them in here. So you can search for any of these quotes, or you can go to our longer videos, or you can go to our PowerPoint presentation, which is 600 pages. And you can find all of these quotes, and you can search them, and you can find out who said that. And you can talk to them if you want. So our initial audit of denials, I'm just going to go through this pretty quick. Denial, K-1 visa was denied. The CO, that would be the consular officer, gave his reason the relationship is not bona fide. We've been in a relationship for 5 years. So picture this. You've been in a relationship for 5 years. There's got to be all kinds of proof that you are a valid couple. 5 years. You probably sent an I-129F packet with that look like a couple of phone books with all this stuff, pictures of you together for 5 years. But the CO denied, said, we don't think your relationship is real. It's not bona fide. Second one, CO didn't look at our evidence. There was no picture of his mom and I. No picture of the fiancé with the US Citizen Petitioners' mother. That's a reason for denial. So as you read through these, pause the video and read these screens because I'm not going to read them all. But you will notice how just crazy this stuff is. It's crazy. I thought it was crazy. What did I do? I don't, are people going to believe me if I say it's crazy? No. I went out and got psychologists from academia, from some of the best universities in the United States, and from psychology organizations. And, I asked them, is this crazy? And they said, yeah, it's crazy. So, like I said, pause the video, read the screens. Pause the video, read the screen. So as you can see, most denials are, failure to prove the existence of a bona fide relationship, which means that's their catch-all thing. If they want to deny a visa case and they don't have a reason why, we'll get to that in a little bit. They just use that, you failed to prove to us that you have a bona fide relationship. Approvals, same deal here. Now in the denials, I made the mistake. I just noticed that I didn't include the questions in there, but it's just as insane as the approvals. Same deal. Ask 3 or 4 questions, approved. Ask 3 or 4 questions, denied. Approvals. Do you know what a K-1 visa means? What does your fiance do? Have you been to the U.S. to visit him? Are you okay with a wedding in the United States instead of your country? Okay, you're approved. Same deal here. 3 questions. How long have we been engaged? When do I plan on leaving for the USA? How did you meet? You're approved. Pause the screens and read everything. And also go to our 5 videos and read more examples of this. The more you read, the more insane it sounds, and the more familiar you'll get with the process. And that's what you want to be when you go to an interview. So here we have the San Bernardino Terrace again. Their case was approved by the USCIS because they had 0 indicators, because they're smarter than a 12-year-old. And, the consulate officer, an entry-level guy that doesn't, there's no education requirements, just trained to follow the rules. And the rules said if there's no indicators, approve the case. If there's high indicators, then toss a coin. So as you can see, whether it was approved or denied, nobody thinks that the interview is real. Our people are experts, psychologists, who will speak before Congress pretty soon. We're trying to get that going. They're going to say, I'm a trained psychologist. We have people that are trained psychologists all their life in psychology, and they think this is a joke. They're not finding legitimate couples. They're not looking for them. They're just asking 3 questions and approve or denial. That's it. So here's basically, you can find a lot of this up on the internet. The consensus is, the overwhelming consensus is, the decision's already been made before the interview. Even people that get approved, they're shocked. They asked me 3 questions and then said approved. Is that some kind of psychological process? No. So in summary, the INA is the law. It's not followed. End of this topic. New topic: arrogance, incompetence, and corruption. Now, if somebody tells you, the U.S. federal government is arrogant and incompetent and corrupt, you might not want to believe them. They're also insane. And you might think that, we're a bunch of, anti-government people that are, a few hundred people held up on a farm somewhere. And we've got 1,500 automatic weapons and grenade launchers and, 1 million rounds of ammunition, and we're waiting for the government to show up so we can start shooting people. No, we're not that. We're professionals. So when we say that the government is arrogant, incompetent, and corruption, we intend to prove it to you. Arrogance. Pause these screens and read them. This just shows you some of the sample letters that are just arrogant as hell. Basically, we are demigods. You are not. We're going to deny your visa case. We're not going to tell you why, because if we tell you why, you might be able to fight it. So we're just going to give this generic form letter and say you're denied. And don't bother us anymore. We no longer have jurisdiction because we denied it. So pause the screen and read it. Same here. This is a common, a lot of these form letters that come from the consulate are, they're form letters. Incompetence. So the 4 possibilities again. So number 1, 30,000 fiancé visa cases are approved annually. All the ones that have low indicators fly through. Okay, so you don't have to worry about that. If you and your fiancé analyze yourselves compared to the red flags or indicators and decide that you don't have any, then don't worry. You should get through fine. Couples who are criminal, fraudulent, and posing as real couples denied, that almost never happens. Why? Because these criminals know how to beat the system. They don't get denied. They fly through and get approved, which is number 3. Criminal, fraudulent people get approved. That's bad, but it happens by the thousands every year. To all the target groups, they're smarter than 12 years old. They're smarter than a 12-year-old, or 5-year-old. they can beat the system. Couples who are in legitimate loving relationships and get denied. Well, the bad news here is that 700 of you are going to get denied this year. And it doesn't matter how legitimate you are. If you have a high number of indicators, it's just like a roll of the dice, whether you're going to get through the interview or not. We're going to help you. So number 2, 3, and 4 are just all indications of incompetence. San Bernardino, again, pause the screens and read them. And this, I'll not pause this. Let's just talk about this. These are the 14 Americans who are no longer with us. So this is a page that's basically a tribute to 14 American lives who were, people whose lives were ended by the San Bernardino terrorists. And this can and will happen again. Congress is doing nothing to stop it. And, neither is the executive branch. We're trying to do something about it. So here's another example of incompetence. This is a Chinese father and daughter team. They are not lawyers. They have no license to practice law in California, but they set up a law office right downtown. You can see that 60 or 80 South something, whatever. It's right in the heart of Los Angeles, right downtown, in a pretty high rent building that has mostly law firms in it. So what they're going to do is make millions of dollars by finding Chinese people, Chinese citizens who want to pay for United States citizenship. And they're going to pair these people up with American Citizen Petitioners. So the American Citizen Petitioner might be a Chinese person that just, can't find a husband or a wife. And they also, maybe they're willing to have some money too. They might get paid a little bit for this. So basically the law firm seeks to pair up couples. And when they pair up couples, they're not going to pair up a couple from like Guangzhou to a couple from Shanghai, because Guangzhou, is the formerly known as Canton, is a city that speaks Cantonese, like Hong Kong. So, the difference in language might be an issue. So they would hook up, in Shanghai, they speak mostly Mandarin. Of course, Shanghai might be a bad example because they speak Shanghainese too. But, they pair up couples that have no difference in language, no difference in religion, no difference in income, no difference in education, no difference in age. So when they're looking for a couple, they look for people that are like 1 or 2 years apart. Because why? Because they're criminals. They don't want to go to prison. This is against the federal law. You're breaking the Immigration and Nationality Act by doing this. This is visa fraud. So in order to keep out of prison, they just have to have the sense of a 12-year-old. Any 12-year-old could beat the system. They avoid indicators. So they pair up these couples. They match them. The law firm actually matches them up and says, hey, this is fine. This is a good couple for you, because a good person for you, because you have, you can slide through the system with this person with ease. So that's what happened here. 70 cases, and finally ICE somehow found them. And, then they found out there were 70 cases before this. Incompetence. Because why? Because they slipped right through the system. This is another target group like the terrorists who, all the target groups can beat the system. Why? Because if they don't know why, they ask a 12-year-old. Any 12-year-old could beat the system. So this is, external audit of these cases. We're trying to do this now. I actually, I sent in to the FBI for all 70 of these I-129F cases so I could look through and see what their indicators were. And I got to fill out a paper and send it back to the FBI. They sent me a paper. And we also have one of the government watchdog groups working on all of our Freedom of Information Act stuff, where we need papers from the DHS and DOS. So this is, I'm going to give you a little example here, this indicator system, which is basically looking back at statistics. So, if you have an MBA like me and it's been a while since you've had your statistics class and you probably get rusty on it. So this is a little bit of a brush up. What you're looking at here is a normal distribution curve. And like in example 1, let's just say you're a USCIS person, like maybe an upper manager, maybe one of the leadership team, and you're sitting there with one of your consultants, and you're trying to figure out, what do we do with age indicators? So if you take the whole population, say for a month of I-129NF visa cases, and you do a query on the database and say, show me all the couples who have an age difference of 3 years, and you go, whoa, that's like 80% of all the population. We don't want to use 3 years. So then if you bump the age difference up to 10 years, you find out, well, we're still marking 60% of the population. But if you mark it out to 15 years, then say you're 2 standard deviations away. So that means, each side here is going to be like 2.1% on, the reddish areas on both sides of the normal curve. So that's what you're looking for, about 2%. That's what you want to reject every year. They say there's no quota system, but that's just crazy. There's a quota system. It's 2% every year. So the problem with this mindset and using these indicators is you have target groups that you're trying to find using the indicators. The target groups are avoiding the indicators. So this is just pure craziness. It's just, there's nothing crazier on the planet. Maybe in North Korea there's a couple crazier things going on. But, as far as the United States, this is about as crazy as it gets. They're trying to find these target groups, and the target groups are trying to avoid the indicators. Corruption. So, before we said number 4 was it was incompetence. Now we're calling it corrupt. I didn't change our mind. It's both incompetent and corrupt. But we know the government has to do this. So unfortunately, your fiance could get denied because the government has to do this. Why do they have to do it? If they approved every fiance visa case before them, we would have terrorists coming into this country by the zillions every year. We would have sham marriages like crazy. We would have a lot of people in human trafficking. There'd be, new prostitution rings and sweatshops and everything set up all over the country. We would be in shambles, basically. They cannot find the target groups. They have to deny some cases. What's going to happen? Do the math. Your fiance might be what's going to happen. So corruption, here's another case of a corruption. When the consulate sends a message to you, a memo says that your case is denied, you might want to contact your senator right away, and then the senator goes through the motions of writing a form letter and putting your case number in it, and they send it back to the consulate. So this one's from Taiwan, or no, it's from Guangzhou, People's Republic of China. So this is another corrupt tactic that they have. They say they're going to return the case to the USCIS, and they say if the visa petition has expired by the time the USCIS receives it, the USCIS will not reaffirm or reopen the petition. In other words, you're screwed. So what do? They sit on the case. They deny a case and they sit on it for 4 months, just to guarantee that your I-797 validity period is expired. So you are screwed. You're denied. You don't know why. It's going to take you 4 months to figure out why. And even then, you can't do anything about it. This is just pure corruption. Somebody ought to be shot for doing this. I mean, somebody ought to be taken out in front. That'll line up some denied visa petitioners and just give them some high-powered rifles and just, blast these people. Other examples of corruption. Pause the screen and read the page. This has to do with not following the policies and procedures that are in the law, the INA. So here's the most corrupt thing they did is they went through this whole meeting in front of the Senate and they didn't tell the truth. They're supposed to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth. They didn't tell the truth because the truth would be we have no clue how to find the target populations. So we deny legitimate couples to make it look like we're working, and to make it look like, to terrorists or the other target groups, like make it look like the process is not automatic. That's corrupt. Pause and read the screen. This is what we think they need to do to actually work. Pause the screen and read this. This tells you how to actually, if you watch the video, and we encourage you to watch the video, just, when you're watching it, just write down a person's name, Ted Cruz, And he said sensitive. And you can find it later just by searching it. And then when you click on the word sensitive in the text below, it'll take you to that point in the video. It's pretty cool. So anyways, Ted Cruz comes in and asks the questions as Feinstein already asked, but he wasn't there for that. And she's gone for this. So, nobody knows what they're doing. He says one of the San Bernardino terrorists entered on a K-1 visa and lied about a Pakistani address. What went wrong? What happened here? So Emmerich again, here's some more smoke. So this is a smoke and mirrors act again. The reason they got through, there were no national security indicators on the I-129F. Well, how do you like that? Because a 12-year-old could beat the system. The incident was reviewed by the USCIS. We added more information to the I-129F. We conducted more training to determine credibility. And we do not have robust infrastructures overseas to verify addresses. So in other words, if you lie in the form and say that you met, they're not going to check on it. If you say if you come into the Arabian Peninsula through Saudi Arabia or United Emirates or wherever this terrorist came in, she didn't come in through Pakistan. She lied about that address. So does this make you feel secure that the terrorist attack won't happen again? Like I said, watch the whole video. Cruz asked, to what extent are we examining social media? And Emmerich replies, it's being reviewed. We've done a social media investigation on 19,000 people. We don't know what to do with it. We haven't put anything into effect, but we've done this review. Social media could also verify that you're a valid couple. Why? Because picture this. If you're in a sham marriage, you're some American citizen petitioner, and you're going to get some money from a Chinese citizen who's going to pay $80,000 for citizenship. Maybe you're going to get, $40,000 and the law firm gets $40,000. Maybe you're going to get $10,000 and the law firm gets $70,000. But you're not going to post stuff on social media and say, here comes my fiance, because your family would be saying, who? You're not even dating anyone. Where'd you get a fiance? So, you can tell by social media who's legit and who's not. People that, if you have a fiance, a loving relationship, you probably have stuff, you have stuff posted on a forum maybe, but, your social media is probably full of your fiance's information and pictures and stuff like that. So, social media could be used, and he asked about social media, and here Donahue, another smoke and mirrors act, or maybe that's from a crack pipe, I don't know. But he said, social media is a tough nut to crack. So, it's a tough nut to crack. We're professionals, and, what we're doing is, we're denying cases for legitimate couples. We don't want to know about social media. Corruption. Earlier we said that this age difference is incompetence, but it's also corruption because they know that the target groups are slipping through the system. How do they know? Because ICE finds them afterwards. So here's a little graphic. This is covered on other videos, but if you look at this white oval in the middle, I had a bunch of indicators in there that said DIL, low number of indicators, IH, high number of indicators. So I pulled out the ILs and the Ds. The Ds go in the trash. But if you get denied at USCIS, you can get a waiver, so keep that in mind. Maybe you can get a waiver. So the people that go through the system with low indicators, most of them are gonna end up being happily married couples, but some of them are gonna be happily, terrorizing terrorists and jihadists. Some of them are going to be in sham marriages, and some of them are going to find themselves in a sweatshop or a prostitution ring, someplace they don't want to be. And, that's what happens to low interviews. They fly through the system. They either get married or they're criminals, and they know how to beat the system because why? They didn't know at first. They asked a 12-year-old. So if you have a high number of indicators, you go to a roulette wheel, and that's called the interview. And it's basically, some people can come out of that and be happily married couples. Some people not. It depends on what the consulate officer, the entry level, no education consulate officer who is not trained in psychology and can't pick out a terrorist, they're going to interview your fiance and whatever is going to happen. high number of indicators, you're a target. You're marked. So here's another indication of corruption. If we look at this blue thing in the middle, and it says US DOS and Department of State, Department of Homeland Security, the whole of government approach, including indicators and the interview. So let's just call this blue thing the criteria that they use to determine the cases. Has the government ever taken this criteria and bumped it up against a known population of terrorists to see if it works? No. Have they ever bumped it up against the sham marriages to see if anything is, if it's possible to indicate, to point out or identify a sham marriage? No, they haven't done that. How about, have they ever taken this criteria and bumped it up against known populations of human trafficking? No, they have never done any of this stuff because they don't want to know that it doesn't work. Okay? So this is just pure corruption. They're using criteria. I mean, maybe you'd have to be older than a 12-year-old. Let's just say a teenager would know that, if you're using criteria to identify populations, you should maybe bump it up against known populations to see if the stuff works. If it doesn't work, why are you using it? Why don't you just say, okay, we're not going to use any criteria, but we're going to deny your case today because we can't approve everybody. That's the truth. And they'd save themselves a lot of time. So pause and read this screen. Corruption. End of that topic. So I'm going to go through this. I'm going to pause the video and you can read the screen for most of this stuff. But basically, it's no secret that fiancés, fiancé visa couples, the petitioners and their fiancés, are afraid of the system. Why? Because you have good reason to be afraid. Because you get up on these forums and you see that people, oh my God, we got denied. How did we get denied? We've been dating 5 years. We have all kinds of proof. How did we get denied? Because you had indicators and because it was, they flipped a coin and it was your turn to get denied. So yeah, you have a lot to fear. So pause these screens and read them. They read about shocking denials from couples. Yeah, they're in shock. They expected to have their fiancé over here for a wedding. Now they're denied. They don't know what's going to happen. They're looking at another year of figuring out what happened. So here's what we have. We have a bunch of terrorists and, sham marriages and human traffickers that get in. And then we have, Department of Homeland Security mistakes. 858 in this one audit were identified that granted citizenship in there. So, that's a good reason to be able to use the system. If they can't stop the terrorists, the sham marriages, the human trafficking, other types of fraud criminals, who are they keeping out of the country? They're keeping your fiancé out. Into that topic. New topic, the counterattack on, this is something you're going to have to pause and go through. These are DHS and DOS employees. So I have many, many pages of this in the other videos. Video 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 covers this in a little bit of detail, but we have a 600-page presentation where we have at least 20 examples of all of these people. So we have screenshots here from the Department of Justice. And these are USCIS employees who are in the black and red. Okay, I just use that as a color scheme so you can tell when you're getting from one section to the other. So first there's 10 screens of USCIS employees getting arrested and convicted and sentenced to federal penitentiary. So why? The one on the left is found guilty of accepting bribes, and the one on the right is bribes. Okay, so these are USCIS employees who were investigated by somebody, maybe the Department of Justice, or maybe it came from inside the USCIS. But, these are people that are in prison now. So red is USCIS, yellow is ICE. ICE, we consider them to be the good guys, but, they're not immune to being corrupt, and they get put in the slammer too. DHS is orange, and this is the OIG. This is the Office of Inspector General. So the guy that was ahead of the Office of Inspector General, whose job it is to oversee the DHS and make sure that everybody's following rules and regulations and there's no wasted spending, no frauds, or no corrupt people breaking federal laws. And the head of the OIS got put in prison for 3 years. Crazy. DOS, Department of State, they do everything that everybody else does, but they take it to a new level too. Here's espionage, crimes against the United States. This is a case you'll be reading about in 2018 because it hasn't gone to trial yet. But this is a woman who was getting free vacations all over China, free paid vacations in exchange for information, and she's in deep doo-doo. So how do you feel now? Now the picture, if you look at the other videos, you'll see that we have 20 examples of each one of these. The counterattack, that's the end of that topic. New topic, the counterattack on methodology. So here's the US Senate Committee on Immigration. I thought, well, you guys are sitting there watching a smoke and mirror show and you don't know why. So I'm going to prove it to you, and I'm going to prove, since I'm, not a 12-year-old, I'm a pretty experienced federal government consultant and a pretty smart guy. And I decided, let's use your universities as an example. So here's Senate Committee on Immigration. 4 of them went to Harvard. 4 of them went to Georgetown. Pretty good universities, right? Feinstein went to Stanford, and the chair that was, the chair that's the chair now, Cornyn, went to University of Virginia. So what did I do with this stuff? Well, I'm a troublemaker. So I wrote to this is Harvard University, I wrote to the Department of Statistics, and I wrote to the Department of Psychology. And I asked the Department of Statistics, hey, what do you think about these people using the indicator system to try to capture people who are avoiding indicators, and I got schooled by one of these professors because I remembered something wrong and actually had something written wrong. But, they think it's crazy. It's just crazy. This is the Department of Statistics of Harvard University. And then I, wrote to the Department of Psychology, to all these people here, and said, what do you think about this psychology of the interview? And, they just said the same thing. It's crazy. So, I'm trying to convince the Senate Committee on Immigration that they saw a smoke and mirrors show because they didn't see what I saw. They saw a bunch of guys making excuses or answering questions, and everything was okay with them. Everything's not okay with me. I see issues. I wrote to I wrote to universities and said, what do you think of this stuff? And I also wrote to psychological associations, the American Psychological Association and the Association for Psychological Science, and said, hey, what do you people think of this? What do you think about using the psychology of the interview? And, same stuff. It's crazy. So we're gonna try to arrange these people so we don't interfere with their schedules too much. But we're going to try to get somebody to speak before Congress. And this would be before the Senate Committee on Immigration and say, oh, by the way, I'm a professor at the school you went to. We also went to SCORE. Why did we go to SCORE? SCORE is, the Service Corps of Retired Executives. They help people start businesses. This is a very, very important thing to know if you're starting any kind of business. So what we want to do is start a consulting firm and get up before Congress and say we can straighten out this system. So we asked some experts in SCORE and couldn't ask for any better expert than the person we got, the psychology person that we got from SCORE. Just excellent person who goes out of their way to read and do their own research, and just the best resource we could find. We also have feedback, and we also have help from. We're working with people at the Department of Justice and the USCIS and the FBI. So that's the end of the counterattack on methodologies. Now we go into a counterattack on senators and representatives. So what we have here is this graphic on the right that I call the circle of insanity, this cycle that keeps going on. So at the top we have the Department of Homeland Security and Department of State. They're unable to identify target groups. So what do? They identify legitimate couples instead. And what happens? The consulate denies legitimate couples. And then couples say, we got denied. I'm going to write to my senator. And the senator sends a form letter to the consulate, and the consulate sends a form letter back and says they were unable to prove the existence of a bona fide relationship. So what you need for this insane cycle to continue is the insanity of the Department of Homeland Security and Department of State. Their crazy policies and procedures need to, keep it going. And then the indifference of senators and representatives. So on the right, you see Department of Homeland Security, Department of State. On the left, you see the indifference of senators. So what we think should happen here is a senator should be in shock when somebody from their state who has gone through the USCIS and been bumped up against a criminal background to verify this is a law-abiding citizen in your state, or if you're a representative in your representative district, and they got denied a visa. Now, how does that happen? They should be in shock, and they should do something about it. The reason they should do something about it is if they confronted the consulate overseas, the consulate might say, whoops, we got a senator saying that this is a legit couple, and we better do something here, or we're going to be in deep doo-doo for being found out that we do some insane stuff. So if that happened and the senators could stop these people from denying visas, they still can't approve anyone. They might actually look for a real, target group. They might get off their butts and look for a system that can identify the target groups. So we look at the senators as being just as big a part of the problem as the other, department, as the executive branch. So this is what you need. We're putting the nation at a really, really high risk from terrorists by letting this crazy cycle go through. So we have all these groups, terrorists, sham marriages, human trafficking victims, and internal heirs. They're all getting into the country and getting citizenship, but some 700 couples a year are going to be denied. So that's the end of that. Now we're going to take a brief look at the work that it would take. So here, just pause and read these screens. We use Ohio here as an example. Ohio has 16 representatives, which is just 435 representatives in the House. So that's 3.7% of the House. So if we play with these numbers a little bit, in 2014, we have a statement here from the USCIS saying that 35,925 cases were filed for K-1 visas. They rejected 618. We don't have the rejection for 2016. The numbers aren't in for 2017 yet. So we have to, just extrapolate a little bit and figure out what the number is for 2016. And we do some math, we can find out that 2016 has 660 denied cases. So Ohio's share of these 660 cases would be 3.7%, which is 25 cases of these. 25 of these are Ohio. So Ohio has 16 representatives. So 16 representatives, 25 cases in Ohio every year, and the same thing would happen all over the country, that same average. You're talking about a representative actually taking some effort to confront the Department of State, the consulate, and say, why was this couple denied? And don't give me this, they're unable to approve a bona fide relationship. They look bona fide to us. We checked their social media. They're a legitimate couple. What was the basis for your unable to prove a bona fide relationship? So that would be 1.5 cases a year for a representative. And if you did that, for senators, it'd be 12 cases a year, or one every month. That's the effort that it would take for senators and representatives to confront the Department of State and give you some kind of voice in this denial process. Otherwise, you have nothing. And that would, we think it would force them into changing their policies and procedures and doing something smart. So that's the topic, case for the prosecution of the Department of State. So I removed this entire section, but I encourage you to look at it for, in the other videos like 1 through 5. They give examples of why some of these people, or actually one person in particular, should be, put in jail. And that's corruption and public opinion of U.S. senators. So just pause these screens and read them. The same deal here. We had a big section in our other videos and our big presentation where Congress is blue and black, and we have a bunch of pages of them getting thrown in the slammer. And here's Americans' opinion of Congress. Throw them out. That's what Americans think of Congress. And here's a report that's made to Congress every year from the Department of Justice. And this is for fiscal year 2015. So if you look on the right, that's the table at the end, table 1, the first table in the back of this report. It's, I don't know, 22 pages long, about 30 pages long altogether. And they're saying that in this year, 2015, they charged 458 federal officials with a crime. They convicted 402 of them, and 153 are still awaiting trial. So, the examples we're giving you of this, USCIS and DHS and ICE and Department of State, we just gave you a few examples, and senators, they're also federal people. It's a drop in the bucket. There's 458 charged every year. That's pretty major. So now do you believe that your government's corrupt? Your government is corrupt. Here's, just another, this publication is put out by the Department of State on the left. I'm sorry, Department of Homeland Security on the left, Department of State on the right. This is the Office of Inspector General. So when the Department of Homeland Security was set up after the 9/11 attacks, they set up this Department of Security Office of Inspector General. Why? Because they anticipated corruption. And the Inspector General is supposed to, get a handle on that. But both of these have this office, and that's a bad sign. You need that office because there's corruption. So clearly, the government is corrupt. End of that topic. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about visa forms. You can pause these pages and read it. Visa forms are a great resource for you, but they're also the enemy. Learn how to use them. Learn how to avoid the bad things. So visa forms are sponsored. Look on the tops of the pages. They're sponsored by immigration law firms. You don't need immigration law firms. You should know that. Search for YouTube and look at the K-1 visa packets. The people that are on YouTube that put together these K-1 visa packets, I looked at some, and they're just excellent. And, just follow that. You don't need an attorney. Just get an I-129F, put together a packet like they tell you to, and you don't need an attorney. So here are the leading forums, in case you don't know: Visa Journey, IMMI Help, and Immigrate to US. There's a bunch of them. Just Google them and find out what they are. Get up there, read, research topics. If you have questions, research the question. Somebody else has had the same question before. Don't ask new questions. They'll yell at you and tell you to read, or they'll give you a link and say, here's the link, read next time. People on these sites just get up there and they get paid to do answers all day. So they answer like, okay, you can do this, or, what is this, or, what do you mean? What year did this happen? What month did this happen? They break it down to as many questions as they can to pad their stats. So we actually went up there and say that we're offering something for people to get denied a visa, which is bad. Because why? Because they're, people that get denied visas might call their law firms. So I went up there and put, on each one of these, visa forms, we are not a service. There's no charge. We put the offer up there, but our account got closed by Visa Journey and IMMI Help. So we're trying to help you. Our account got closed because why? We're in competition with their law firms. So here's the proof. You have been banned for the following reason: offering services. Date ban will be lifted. Never. We don't care. We still have like 5 or 6 accounts in each one of these. But, just the idea, don't contact their law firms. If you need an immigration law firm, don't go to, these visa forums. Go to Google, search, make sure that you're getting a real law firm that's licensed to practice immigration law. How do you do that? Call your county's, legal, body. There's some kind of people in your county that actually can verify whether a law firm, whether they have, a license to practice law in your state, first of all. So make sure you're getting somebody real. Make sure you're getting a good deal. Don't use these law firms that are sponsoring the visa forms. Here's what you should do if you want to use a visa form. If you need to ask a question, let's say we're taking China for an example here. China's a country that has a really, there's a lot of scrutiny with China because of the sham marriages and because of human trafficking. I don't know how many other countries have sham marriages, but every time you read about a sham marriage outfit, it seems to be China. They have a lot of money. They want to be citizens, and they can afford it. So if you go up to where is this visa journey? Okay, go up. If you want to ask a question to somebody about maybe the interview, don't post a question on the forum and let some moderator or super user answer the question. They don't know squat about China, right? Go to Visa Journey Immigration Timelines and then click on K1 Visa Immigration Timelines and you'll get this table. Okay, at the bottom of the table, there's a drop down. You can pick the country that you want to see. So pick China or pick, the Philippines or pick, whatever country your fiance is from. So you can identify all the people that are in that, whose fiancés are in that country. Then you might want to sort it by visa interview date. That would put the newer ones on top. But, some of these people haven't had their interview yet. You might want to go see pages underneath K1 Fiance Visa Timelines. Page 1 is like yellowish. Go out a few pages and find somebody that's been through the interview. Click on their name, send them a message and say, you didn't fill out your timeline and you didn't fill out, what questions you were asked. Could you tell me what questions you were asked and how did it go? Contact these people. If you sit on the forum, the people that sit on the forum all day to answer questions are people that work for the forum. They're not going to know anything about the process, the questions that were asked in China. So use the form, learn how to use it to your advantage. Don't just ask some moderator. They just get paid for stupid answers. Go find the people that you want to find and contact them. That's the way you should use this system. So this is you can pause this and read these screens, but I just explained it to you. Okay, that's the end of it. Okay, a new topic, summary. That must mean we're almost done. So in summary, the indicators of the fiancé visa process, which is part of the whole of government system, the indicators have no basis in the science of statistics. The interview of the fiancé visa process, which is part of the whole of government system, has no basis in the science of psychology. Now we're going to take a look at just one more way to look at this. We're going to look at this situation, this insanity, from two different viewpoints. The viewpoint of a sane, educated, law-abiding American citizen, up on the upper left, you see that little thing in blue? Sane, educated, law-abiding American citizen. On the right, whole of government viewpoint. So we're going to take a little pictorial look at what's going on here. So here we have a room, looks like a church somewhere, and we have a bunch of white guys that are some kind of clergy-looking people, and we have a guy in the middle that's all dressed in gold, and he's probably, maybe a bishop or a cardinal or something like that. And then we have a gentleman on the left who's all in black. He's wearing sandals and the black outfit, and he's got a mask, ISIS-looking mask on him. He's holding up an AK-47, and he's waving an ISIS flag. So to me and to you, he might look kind of jihadi to us, right? He looks like somebody we don't want in our country. But on the right, what you can see here is the consular officer, and he looks like a very intelligent guy. He's looking at the indicators, and he sees a fiancé visa case where the indicators are low. And what is he trained to do? By the Deputy Secretary of State. If there's no indicators, pass them on through. So that's what he does. He's welcome to the United States. You can't take your gun with you, but you can get another gun when you get there. Then we have another set of cases where the indicators are high, and what happens here is, oh, by the way, some of the other guys in white also have low indicators, so they get passed right on through. But there's some of the guys in white who have a high number of indicators. So they go to a roulette wheel called the interview. And depending on the mood of the consulate officer, they get denied or approved. Some people wind up getting approved. Some people wind up getting denied. It could be, having to do with the quota. Maybe you're coming in the last day of the month and nobody in the consulate that have filed for, like China has a very, very low volume of fiancé visa cases. We've been studying China a lot because, China comes under a lot of scrutiny, and China has a lot of issues, with scam marriages and sweatshops. They seem to break all the rules. So this guy, might be a consul officer, and they have a meeting in the morning with their consul officer manager. He says, we haven't denied any fiancé visas this month. Matter of fact, this quarter we haven't denied any. So we need to deny somebody today. So, pay attention to your training, and deny, use your judgment and deny some people. So, he might, he might be, he's kind of a, aesthetically challenged looking consular officer, I guess. So he, the first interview he sees of the days is a beautiful Chinese girl that comes in. And he says, wow, I could never rate a girl like that. Maybe I should just deny her, If I can't have her, nobody can. So whatever mood the consular officer is in has to do with what happens to your fiance. So this is another graphical way of looking at the whole, situation. You have the indicators. You have the I-129F on the upper left. You have the standard distribution where they're marking their indicators at the extremes of the entire population, way out, a couple standard deviations away. The target groups, though, the terrorists and the human trafficking and the sham marriages on the left side of the page, they don't have any trouble getting by the indicators because, they're not going overseas and meeting somebody, in a work assignment or somebody in a museum somewhere. American might go to maybe the Louvre and, might see a nice looking French fiance and start talking, and all of a sudden they become your fiance. They don't worry about a difference in age. They don't worry about a difference in education, or a difference in language. So they have a lot of indicators, but the target groups don't have any indicators. So you can see on that graph on the bottom, we have a the red area, which is the target groups. They're kind of hiding in the middle. They avoid indicators. They can't be caught. So we have guys like ISIS coming in, and we have people that are getting denied, and guess who? It could be your fiance. So thank you, and remember to be prepared for the interview. Be prepared by being ready to discuss your indicators and address your indicators and even bringing them up. When your fiance sits down, have your fiance say, I'm a little nervous because I know we have indicators. Use the word indicators. That's what, that's not general talk in the population. We call them red flags. The indicators, are things that the government uses. That's their terminology for this, statistics part of the process. So be ready to discuss your indicators. Say, I'm a little nervous. I know we have a big difference in age, and I know that's an indicator, and I know that sometimes people get denied because of that, but that seems crazy to us because we have a legitimate relationship, but it still makes us nervous. Confront them a little bit. Don't tell them that you know everything, that their whole process is a sham. I wouldn't put it that way. But confront them and let them know that you know what's going on. Okay, you have a high number of indicators. You're looking at a roulette wheel, black or red. Are you going to get approved or are you going to get denied? Let them know that you're concerned. You have a legitimate relationship. You shouldn't have any reason to be concerned. The only reason you're concerned is that sometimes legitimate couples get denied for some strange reason. You can't figure it out. Confront them. Let them know that you know what's going on. Thank you, and we need subscribers. Please, we're new here on YouTube. We just loaded our first videos up here, so please subscribe and pass this link on to, this video link on to your social media contacts and ask them to pass it on. Pass it on to people that they know in college. If we could get a couple of universities looking at this thing, we'd have a zillion subscribers. Okay, thank you. We appreciate your time. And, we just happen to be similar to, President Trump by, we're looking at a swamp that we want to drain. And that's what, that's one of his campaign promises, to drain the swamp. There's a lot of bad stuff going on in the fiance visa process. There's a lot of really crazy, policies and procedures, and they have no basis in science. There's some people that establish these policies and procedures that are corrupt, and we need to get rid of them. We need to drain the swamp. So thank you again, and have a great day.